This is the beginning of our statistics lessons that we missed at the end of the year this past year. Okay, so you should have a packet, and we'll start with our vocabulary first. So our vocabulary, if you'll see on your page 2, all you need to do is fill in. So we have the mean, which you've talked about before in other grades. It's the arithmetic average, used when the data is normal, not skewed, and we'll talk about that later, okay, and what that means. Okay, next the median. Of course, the median is the middle, okay, and you are going to use it when the data is skewed. Again, we'll talk about that later. And if any outliers are present, we'll talk about outliers later also. Next, we have the mode, is where data appears the most. The lower extreme is the lowest data value or the smallest data value. The upper extreme is the highest data value. Lower quartile represents the lower 25% of the data. Upper quartile represents the first 75%. Lower quartile is usually Q1. Upper quartile is called Q3 or quartile 3. Your range is the highest subtracted from the lowest. Actually, it should be the lowest subtracted from the highest. Okay, interquartile range. The difference between the first and third quartile. So you take quartile 3 minus quartile 1, and that is your interquartile range. Standard deviation, which we will talk about later again, is a statistical measure of how far data is away from the mean. An outlier is a value outside most values, so it's going to be bigger or smaller than most of your values that you have. The spread, how far away from the mean or median. So your spread is how far away the other numbers are from the mean or the median. The center is the value that attempts to ascribe a set of data by identifying the middle of the set of data. So your mean or your median is your center. And again, we'll talk about that later. Okay, so here's a box and whiskers plot. Okay, usually it's on a number line. Okay, but I drew this just to give you, just to tell you what every part is. Your lower extreme is your first dot. Okay, your upper extreme is your other dot. It makes the whiskers. Your box is made by Q1 and Q3. Okay, and the line in the middle of the box is made by the median. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today, is how to make a box and whiskers plot. All right, so if you'll remember desmos. Well, desmos, if you'll look at page 3, desmos of your notes, there's the Desmos website that you can go to, and it gives you all of the instructions that you need for statistics. So if you don't have, we're going to show you, when you come back to school, we're going to show you how to use the calculator to find statistics. It's pretty simple, but so is Desmos. Okay, so if you'll remember, there's a plus sign up here. You're going to need that when we talk about linear regression. Okay, and remember there's a box here. Okay, and if you press this button here, 1, 2, 3, okay, it brings you back and forth between ABC and 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then you have your button that says functions. Okay, and that's what you need to press to get to stats, and stats lists all your functions. Okay, so on this, the keyboard has the little keyboard here, 1, 2, 3. See, all these are letters, but if you hit 1, 2, 3, brings you back to your numbers. Brackets, you're going to need those, and this little squiggle line we're going to talk about later, you're going to need the little squiggle line. So I was just showing you where it was on the keyboard. All right, so if you have one variable statistics, which means there's only a list of one number, not an X and a Y, just a list of numbers. that you need to find the mean, median, mode, all of those four. Okay, you're going to open the length for desmos, go to the keyboard at the bottom that I just showed you, and you're going to click stats. Okay, so I've given you all what everything means: your total, your median, your min, your max, your mean. Okay, you can find all of this. All right, stats, if you're making a box and whiskers plot, stats is the best thing to use because stats gives you the min, the max, the Q1, Q3, and the median. All right, standard deviation, which we're going to talk about later. Okay, it gives you the standard deviation. Okay, what you're going to do is put the numbers in the box. Now I'm going to go back to the brackets. Okay, you have to put brackets around your numbers that you put in the box. So if you had a list of numbers of 1, 3, 5, 7, you're going to click one of these. Okay, let's say you click stats. Okay, it'll open a parenthesis. You have to put brackets around your numbers and close the parenthesis for this to work. That's what the brackets are for. Linear regression, we're going to talk about later. You can do this in Desmos. And I'll show you an example of how to do what I have put right here, okay? And how to type all of this in. You do need to know these. R is your correlation coefficient, M is slope, B is your y-intercept. Okay, if you'll notice here, we have Y, we have M, we have X, we have B. So Y equals MX plus B is your slope-intercept form, and that's what we use for linear regression. Okay, remember, this one for linear regression is going to have X and Y values, so you need to do a table. Remember, the plus sign allows you to find a table. So you click the plus sign, and it says table, and you click on table, and you put your values in. That's how you find a table. All right, so first we're going to talk about box and whiskers. Okay, you probably talked about this last year. All right, sometimes you have an even set of data. Sometimes you have an odd set of data. If you have an even set of data, then your median is going to be in between those two numbers. So you have to add those two numbers together, divide by 2. If you have an odd set of data, then your median is the very middle number. Okay, but we're going to use Desmos. Okay, so one of the slides I have on here is how to use Desmos. So it says, consider the following set of data. Here it is. They want us to find the min, the max, the median, the first quartile, third quartile, and then make a box and whiskers plot. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so I put all of my numbers in Desmos. I just went to the first box. I clicked function here. Okay, and then I clicked stats. And then I clicked stats again, and that's what popped up there. Okay, if you'll notice, it already opens up a parenthesis, and then you have to have brackets. Remember, you have to have brackets around these numbers, or this will not populate. Okay, but if you'll notice, it gives us everything, all just like that. Just gives us everything: the min, the Q1, the median, the Q3, and the max. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to fill in all our numbers. So back here, the min was 3, the Q1, the max was 21, Q1 was 7, the median was 11, Q1 7, and 18 is Q3. Okay, so we're going to make a box and whiskers plot. So you need to remember, this one is the low value. So this is 3. Here is my high value, 21, okay? Your median, 11, right there in the middle. And we're going to make a line where Q1 is, and a line where Q3 is, and make our box. And that's how you make a box and whiskers plot. That's it, okay? Q1, Q3, and here is your median. That would be it. Okay, so let's look at these numbers. The number of boots that 25 students had in their homes in Florida were recorded below. Create a box and whiskers plot in the data above. Label the min, the max, first, third, and median. Okay? So, first of all, remember, you can go into Desmos, okay? Click Stats, and then you're going to click the Stats button again, and it'll automatically put a parenthesis for you. But you also need to put brackets when you're entering in all of the numbers, okay? Okay, remember when you're putting numbers in, to make sure you check to make sure you put them in correctly. So you have 7 zeros here, 4 ones, 7 twos, 4 threes, a 4, a 5, and a 6. Okay? So I got in Desmos, the lowest extreme, or the min, is 0. Q1 is also 0. The median is 2. Q3 is 3. And the max is 6. Okay? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 little dashes on my line here. Okay? So I am going to number them 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay? So this is 0. 0 gets a dot. 6 also gets a dot because that's my min and my max. Well, since 0 is also my first quartile, it gets a line. My median gets a line, and 3 gets a line. And now I'm just going to connect everything. And then there's my whisker. Okay? All right, next problem. It says one of the students was removed from the survey and replaced with a different student's data. So it looks like all I have to change is the 6, and I'm changing it to a 9 because I did have 4, 5, 6 here. Now I have 4, 5, 9. So I'm just going to change that number. My min is still 0. My Q1 is still 0. My median is still 2. My Q3 is still 3, but my max is now 9, okay? So it didn't change much. It only changed my max, adding that number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So 0 again gets a dot, and so does 9, my min and my max. Q1 gets a line. Q2 gets a line, Q3 gets a line, or I'm sorry, the median, which is number 2, gets a line, and then I just create my box. And that's how you create a box and whiskers plot and use Desmos. Okay? All right, it says compare the 5 numbers in question 1 and 2. Which of the 5 number summaries changed? So the only one that changed was the max. Okay, because you're not averaging anything together, you're just looking at numbers. Okay, when the maximum value in a data set is exchanged for a higher number, does it change any of the other numbers in the 5 number summary? No. If you are just changing out a number for another number and you're using a box and whiskers plot, the only thing that changes is either the min or the max, depending on what you changed out. Okay, no other numbers are going to change. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about is histograms. Okay, histograms are also a bar graph. All right, so this should be the next thing that we are looking at is histograms. Okay, all right, so histograms are a bar graph over intervals of time. They go up by 5s, 10s, whatever. Okay. Each interval must be the same. So if you go up by 5s, everything needs to go up by 5s. Always draw the graph, label both axes. Okay? When we're using histograms, we usually use it for a large amount of data. It makes it easier. Okay? So let's look at our first histogram. Okay? So we have a list of numbers here. We're going to make a histogram. Okay? First, find the lowest and the highest. That's going to allow you to set your intervals. Okay, my lowest is 62. My highest is 100. Next, we're going to do intervals of tens. Okay, 61 to 70, 71 to 80, 81 to 90, 91 to 100. So if you'll notice, I have marked my graph, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Okay, these are my student scores. Well, with a histogram, we're talking about frequency of occurrences. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How often was there a student score within that interval? Okay, so I'm going to use tally marks to mark my frequency. All right, so my first number is 100, so that goes there. 98 is another tally mark there. 77, 76, 85, 62, 73, 88, 85, 92, 93, 72, 66, 70, 90, and another 100. Okay, so between the interval of 61 to 70, there are 3 marks. So I am going to shade up to the third frequency. All right, for 71 to 80, we have 4. So I'm going to go up to 4. For 81 to 90, I also have 4. And from 90 to 100, I have 5. Now, you can have spaces in between each interval so that you can see it better, or maybe different colors, okay? But this is what we're talking about. It's the frequency of occurrences within some type of interval. Okay, so let's talk about 2 histograms here. It says the histogram below that shows data about scores on a history test. So how many students took the test? Well, all I need to do is count up the number of occurrences. So the first one is 2. Second one in between 4 and 6 is 5. So 2 plus 5 plus 8 plus 12. And then the last group goes up to 6. Okay. All right, so that's 33 students that took the test. Okay. How many students scored at least a 71 on the test? Now, at least means a 71 or greater. Okay, so here's our group of 71. So there are 8 of those, plus the 12 that's greater, plus the 6. So that is 26 kids who scored at least a 71 or greater. Can you determine the highest grade from the histogram? The answer is no. Not unless they give you the information. You don't know the highest grade is 100. Okay? You don't know what the highest grade is, because all this tells you is that there's grades in that range from 91 to 100, not that there is a score of 100. All right, number 2, the histogram below shows data about movie revenues in a recent year. How many movies grossed at least 141 million? Okay, so I'm going to make this a little bigger because I cannot see. All right, so here's our revenue in millions. This is 141 to 180. Okay, so it looks like number of movies. Okay, so it looks like 5. Remember, at least is that number or greater. All right, plus 1. The next group is 2. None in the next 2 groups, and then 2 again. All right, and then the last group is also 2. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we have 12 movies that scored 141 million, at least 141 million. Okay? How many movies grossed between 61 million and 180 million? Okay, so let's find 61 million, which is right here, and 180. So it's going to be these 3. right here that we're going to look at for B. So we have 4, and then 10, and then 5. So 19 movies scored between those two numbers. Can you determine how many movies gross between 121 and 140 million from the histogram? So yeah, we can, because all we got to do is look up here. We can determine how many score between certain amounts on the histogram. Okay, so 121 million to 140 million. So, well, I take that back. Our range is from 101 to 140, so the answer is no. Range is 101 to 140, so it can't determine 121 to 140 because of the way the range is set up. Okay? All right, so that is the end of box and whiskers plots and histograms. Okay? You also will have in your packet some extra practice problems. And at the end of the packet, I'll give you the answers to those extra practice problems so that you can go look at it.